Oh, somebody hopped on. Good morning, Gio. All right. Okay. Let's see, did I miss someone else? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Okay, I got everybody. All right. So let me go ahead and present to you guys. All right. And again, like always, just if you want to chime in with a question, feel free in the chat box. I'll try to keep checking it. But just in case I forget, you can chime in and interrupt me. Please feel free. Okay. Okay. So let's look at the course tasks. Okay. So today we're going to talk a little bit about abstracts and just wrap up any concerns that I have about your theory response. And we can talk about that as a big group as well. I know probably the biggest concern is your original research and making sure that you're getting that done now that you're confined to your house. Okay, again, if you need to edit your instrument, it should be very easy to do that, especially, interview, do it web-based, survey, do it via social media, even observation. We can edit, but and we can revise if you aren't able to go to your place that you wanted to observe. So maybe you wanted to go to a soccer game. Well, we're not having soccer games. So there are ways around that. So just please let me know and just keep me in the loop about that so that I can help you. But if you do have concerns about that, for those of you who are having to work during this, and you're at work anyway, obviously that works out great. But depending on your field of work, time might be an issue. So I just want you to be aware that, if you do need to tweak your instrument, the tool that you're using to do your research, we can do that. So your final theory response is due 4/6 at 10 o'clock, Geo, 10 o'clock for my night birds, right? So that was fine instead of 5. So just be aware of that as you're working, that you have that 10 o'clock deadline. Okay. All right. So I think the last thing that we really needed to talk about was abstracts, and we did talk about that briefly when I was going over the structure of the theory response. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at the resource on Moodle, and then we're going to take a look at a section in your book, and then we will take a look at the student sample. So let me get my bearings. I was working on annotated bibliography, so now I have forgotten where I was. Oh, there. Okay, there's the sample, student theory. Okay. And then, I did want to look at correlation. It's not causation. That's a fun website. And then, APA format. Nope. Sample section. There we go. Okay. And I feel like there was one of you that did turn in your outline late, so I apologize because I forgot about you. So I will do that this morning. I don't remember who it was. But regardless, I'll go back and look at the outlines and make sure I captured everybody and everybody has feedback. And, look at all your feedback. I gave you feedback on your instrument post. I think I'm pretty caught up. There might be a 1 or 2 random assignments that I just forgot about. But we're pretty much caught up, or I am, with grading and so forth. So if there is something you're missing, just shoot me an email. I'm human. I forget about that stuff sometimes. Okay. So let's look a little bit at, oh, I think I need to zoom out, maybe. Okay. All right, I might have to search for, here we go. The abstract. Okay. All right, so the abstract summarizes usually in one paragraph of 300 words or less. I'm not worried about words. I'm not a word count person. Good writing is about being concise, which is using as few words as possible, and precise, which means using the exact word. So I would say probably 7 to 10 sentences is good. And that's going to be probably the average that you find when you're on NC Live, looking at any research study. So because I find that when you guys have word counts, then you put ridiculous things in it. So don't worry about the word count. If you want to use it as a guide, I would say 250 to 300. But then if I say that, what you're going to force yourself to be like 251 done. Okay, don't worry about that. Worry about the content. So 300 words or less, aka 7 to 10 sentences should be good. The major aspects of the entire paper in a prescribed sequence it includes. Okay, preview the overall purpose of the study and the research problems you investigated. So 1 sentence for the research problem. So that's the phenomenon that you noticed that you want to study. So for instance, why do people love Crocs? Okay, that was the research problem. And guess what, y'all? I should not have done that Croc example like the 3rd week of class, because now my kids want Crocs for their birthdays. That was karma biting me in the butt. So whichever one of you guys were like, she's ridiculous talking about how Crocs are terrible, you got your revenge, because my kids now want Crocs. But that's the first one. So why do people love Crocs? So that would be the problem. And then you would talk about, or that would be the problem and the purpose. So then you would talk about, what concerns you about the phenomenon. So maybe you read a news article about people having problems with their feet because they wear Crocs so much. I don't know. And so you would talk about that. So that's the problem, is that people are having foot problems with Crocs, right? And then the purpose of the study would be, why are Crocs so popular, right? Okay. So then number 2 is the basic design of the study. That is the summary. This here is the summary of the methodology section. So what did you study? What did you look at, right? So notice you're not really talking about the lit review here. The only place that you could fit the lit review would be the research problem. And I would maybe spend a sentence on that. Okay. And you could say something like research by blank, 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 and blank reveals that many foot problems come from, I don't even know what Crocs are made of. What are they made of? Rubber, plastic? I don't even know. Or whatever they're made of. So research by blank, blank, and blank. So preview your resources. Reveal that kids have many problems, foot problems, due to inappropriate shoe materials. Okay. But you don't want to spend a lot of time on your lit review, right? Very brief. Okay. But number 2 is an overview of your methodology. And I would say that's probably going to take 2 sentences. Okay. You could do it in 1 really great sentence, but that's what you want to do there. And so here, probably 2 sentences, maybe 3. Here, 1 sentence. And then here would be 1 to 2 sentences. And then here would be 1 sentence, right? Okay. So the findings or trends is where you will see your theory, because remember, you're using your theory to interpret your results, right? And notice what word is there, found as a result of your analysis. Okay. So the results and the conclusions. Okay. So all of that goes at the end. And then you'll end with, how did your findings contribute to the larger field as a whole? So that's what you want to end with. So, notice 7 to 10 sentences pretty much. And so that's what you're looking for right there. So, okay, so that's a great sort of resource. In your book, if you don't have your book, go get your book. There's another great sample. Okay, and remember in the theory response, it's okay to use the word I. It's encouraged. APA encourages you to use the word I because you are the researcher doing the research. Whereas in MLA, you want to avoid using I because you are synthesizing and summarizing what other people have said. So the other people, the other organizations should be the focus more so than you, unless you're doing like a reflection or something like that that does involve you. Okay, so in your book, let's see what page. So we've got 205 and 214. I don't remember which page the sample is on, so we will make that work. Okay, so here's the sample on page, it's actually 205 and 206, okay, is the sample here, okay? So, and it's at the bottom of 205. This study compared the motivation and quality of experience of demographically matched students from Montessori and traditional middle school programs. So notice right there, first off the bat is the purpose of the study, okay? Approximately 290 students responded to the experience sampling method and filled out questionnaires, methodology. Multivariate analyses showed, and if our page numbers are different, this is chapter, we're in chapter 8. Sorry about that. I just realized I think our page numbers might be a little different because mine's like a teacher edition. But it is chapter 8, and the section is called Other Structural Conventions, and the heading is abstract. And if you just need to know where it is, look in the back in the index, and that's how I found it. So anyway, multivariate analyses showed that the Montessori students reported greater affect, potency, intrinsic motivation, flow experience, and undivided interest while engaged in academic activities at school. So that's the results. The traditional middle school students reported higher salience while doing academic work. However, such responses were often accompanied by low intrinsic motivation, so more results. When engaged in informal, non-academic activities, the students in both school contexts reported similar experiences, more results. Then implications. These results are discussed in terms of current thought on motivation in education and middle school reform. So notice the bulk of your abstract should really be your results, like half. So half your abstract should be your results and your interpretation using the theory. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for in that. Okay, now notice here on, and we're back to this LibGuide here. So notice, how do you know when you have enough information in your abstract? Which is a great question, right? And you guys are always asking that, which is sometimes why you like word count, right? Okay, so you need to think about it this way, okay? Step outside yourself. And that is something that you should have learned in English 111 in terms of audience, right? And being a reader versus being a writer. So you have to step away from your writing and look at it like you're another researcher and you're trying to do a similar study. Then ask yourself, if the abstract was the only part of the paper you could access, would you be happy with the information presented there? And does it tell the whole story about your study? So remember, spend half that abstract on the results of your study. And then the next important part is the methodology, because that's the replication. And then the next important part is the implications, and then obviously purpose. So, you know, that's what you need, the way you need to think about it is like that. Okay. Right, and here are the different kinds of abstracts. Okay, so for instance, in my 111, we're doing annotated bibliographies, and we're adding an abstract to it, and we're doing a critical abstract, which is we are making a judgment about the sources that we found. And so that's the critical abstract. Then you have the descriptive abstract. but the descriptive abstract doesn't provide results or conclusions. The focus is really to give the purpose, the method, and scope of the research. It focuses just really on the methodology, and usually they're pretty short. Okay, so an informative abstract is truly a summary. And that is this is the one that you are doing. You are doing the informative abstract. Okay. All right, and then there is also what's called a highlight abstract, which is kind of persuasive. It's trying to grab the reader's attention. And that's the goal of that, is just to get you to click. It's kind of like clickbait. So, okay, so, you know, and here's some more sort of hints about your abstract. Notice here, although it is the first section, it should be written last because it summarizes the entirety of your paper, okay? So that's why we're talking about the abstract last, is because you can't do the abstract until your paper is done. And then notice a good strategy is to begin composing your abstract to take whole sentences or key phrases and put them in a sequence that summarizes content. So here in APA, you are encouraged to be like directly repetitive, because you don't want to cause confusion about what you're referring to. So if you call a sofa in one paragraph, you want to continue to call it a sofa. You don't want to switch and call it a couch or a love seat or a settee, right? You want to keep calling it a sofa. That's important for replication of your study. And so you want to make sure that you are being purposefully repetitive. So you can ultimately, in your abstract, pull the exact purpose sentence, okay, from your introduction and put it in your abstract, and then just shorten it a little bit, okay? That's literally what you can do. And APA encourages that because you need to be repetitive, okay? Right? Right, and there's the knots, okay? Lengthy background you don't need. Remember, the background of why you're doing the study is not as important as how, okay? So this is really the how, okay? Avoid acronyms and abbreviations, redundant phrases, adverbs and adjectives, you know, things like wonderful, great, awesome. You know, you don't want anything that's evaluative. You don't want qualifiers, okay? This is a direct, fact-based, systematic, scientific process, okay? Ellipses you don't want to do. Jargon, you do not include citations, okay? You don't need citations at all. And then image, illustration, figure, or table, okay? All right, so there are some quick and dirty tips, okay? So, you know, again, this is a great site, but those are some of the details. Okay, so I'm going to look at the student sample that I pulled off of Moodle, and I think it's down below. And I got the student's permission to use it. I don't know if any of you know Zanaya, but I think I had her like 2 or 3 years ago. Okay, so let's take a look at her abstract. Okay. So the labeling theory is most frequently used in sociology, especially criminology, when it comes to defending juveniles. This theory states that when someone is negatively labeled, they begin to question their identity and their behavior is affected. The general public is the main group that often labels people based on the crimes they commit. Equally important, the modified labeling theory is exploited when appraising those with mental illness. Just like in criminology, the modified labeling theory, as used in mental illness, showcases the strident effects of labeling a mental illness. In regards to mental illness, the labeling theory shows how individuals with a mental illness view themselves in retaliation to how the public labels them. Overall, data and studies about the labeling theory in both fields shows how labels negatively affect one's identity and behavior. So really, this is great, other than she's missing the 2 sentences about her methodology. And I think she is like a lot of you guys in that she struggled to use the active voice that APA requires, the I studied blah, 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 blah. So like, for instance, the part where she says in regards to mental illness, the labeling theory shows, right? So that's kind of like the conclusion that she drew, right? Okay. So here, mean, this is probably a reference to her methodology, right? And then probably here, but she's not using the active voice, so it's hard to tell. Okay. All right. So, but otherwise, I mean, just wonderful summary of her results and a wonderful brief summary of her background. So she just needed that methodology. Okay. And last but not least, and then we're going to move on to our next thing that we're doing. As you are thinking about your conclusions that you are going to draw based upon your research that you have done, okay? All right, this is something that I want you to think about, okay, when you draw conclusions, okay? So you guys have probably heard the term causation or correlation is not causation, okay? You've probably heard that before, okay? So we are in a place in society where people can feign being an expert simply by doing a lot of Google research, okay? But Google is not a scientific platform. Google is just like a store, okay, where you can shop for whatever you want. And just because the store sells it doesn't mean that it has been evaluated and proven to be able to contribute to our knowledge base. Think about it this way. Things are recalled all the time. Vitamins, medicines, chairs, microwaves, right? Stuff is recalled all the time. And that's because a ton of people buy them and then they mess up and they get hurt. Recently, one I saw was the bouncers for the babies. And I don't remember why I got recalled, but it did. Okay. So in the science community, okay, it's Google is just a big repository of stuff that you can quote unquote buy, okay, aka access. But it does not screen much of anything because our freedom of speech laws are pretty open in terms of, you know, compared to other countries. And so really, you know, unless it involves minors or vulnerable populations, like, you know, those with adults with mental illness, for instance, who are intellectually disabled. So unless it involves vulnerable populations, or unless it's libel or slander or defamation, people put whatever they want on the internet, and it's up to all of us to evaluate whether it's good or not. And so we're at a place in society where people have access to all of this information on Google, and people are drawing conclusions that are not logical and accurate based upon, you know, an article that they saw in the deep web. So Tyler Vegan is put together this website and is hoping that people will see how when you look at data goes deeper than just looking for a pattern. There is a science and a mathematical sort of formula that you need to be able to understand in order to do that. Okay. So as you are, and I'm not saying you need to do that. I'm saying that when you look at your results, okay, and we talked about this in class, when you look at your results, okay, you need to make sure that you don't just look at the surface and draw a conclusion. Okay. You can say there is a correlation, which means there's a relationship, but you don't know what the relationship is. Okay. But you can't say something causes something else without digging deeper. And so I love this site, but he talks about how crazy it is when we try to evaluate things. So notice what he's looking at is the pattern, right, of the lines. Okay. So the first one is U.S. spending on science, space, and technology, and suicides by hanging, strangulation, and suffocation. So he's saying that just because the lines follow the same pattern doesn't mean there's a relationship between the two things. There are a ton of ones about Nicolas Cage. So number of people who drowned by falling into a pool, and films Nicolas Cage appeared in. He's kind of fascinated with Nicolas Cage. So, per capita cheese consumption, number of people who died by becoming tangled in their bed sheets. So think about the crazy causation that you could come up with. So if you, in cities where people eat more cheese, right, people get tangled in their bed sheets. So somehow, right, a scientist should figure out how cheese makes us get tangled in their bed sheets. No, I think if you think in your brain, you're like, how in the heck could that be a causation relationship, right? Okay. So correlation just means that there is a pattern, right, that matches, but it doesn't mean that one thing causes the other. That just means it's following the same pattern. This is probably my favorite. So divorce rate in Maine correlates with per capita consumption of margarine. Eat real butter, guys. See, if you don't want to get divorced in Maine, eat real butter. I don't know what to tell you. Here's another great one. Age of Miss America correlates with murders by steam, hot vapors, and hot objects. Okay. Notice how closely it follows the pattern up until you get like over here. But now this one, there might actually be a causation. Total revenue generated by arcades and computer science doctorates awarded in the U.S. That you could probably say and study, right? The causation there, because there's actually been some research about how video game playing activates certain areas of the brain. They've done some research about how it makes really good surgeons. So anyway, but know that just looking at this and seeing there's a pattern doesn't mean you can jump to, this is step one. You've got 5 other steps in between, right? And then by the time you get to step 5, you can say causation because now you've done the research, you've done the interviews, you've done the surveys, you've done the observations, you've done the rest of the math, and then you can say what kind of correlation. So be careful when you are doing your discussion section that you don't make faulty correlations. So that's one of the things that you really got to just pay attention to. Avoid saying the word blanks. The words blank causes blank. Okay. Just say there's a relationship between them, or words like more likely to, more often. Focus on the numbers for those of you that are doing surveys and observations. Okay. All right. So any general questions about the theory response before I abandon that? If you want to schedule a conference, please do. I have one that we're going to try to work something out today. But you know, I'm home all the time now, so I'm pretty available and I can squeeze you in between meetings. The only day I cannot do it is Friday because it's my daughter's birthday. So we're trying to make that, since we're quarantined, we're trying to make that special, right? All right. Any general questions in the chat box? Anybody who wants to speak before we move on to natural science? Okay, well, again, your essay's due Monday night at 10 p.m. I highly encourage you that if you are having issues, talk to me. If you did not turn in an outline, email me, make an appointment. Look at your feedback. Look at all your feedback, guys. That's the only way that I can help you is by giving you good feedback. If you have questions, I think I met with Sarah last week and we went through her feedback. And, you know, I did send the email last week because I am a little worried about you guys because people didn't have outlines. And, you know, I've told, and that was not graded. You know, and I've told you guys, you know, I can't help you unless you write something. And I definitely can't help you if you don't submit something. Okay. Even if it's imperfect, put it up there because the feedback that I give you is completely invaluable because that's how you learn what direction you need to focus as you do your edits and your revisions. So please, please, please go in and make sure you've looked at all the feedback. If you have questions, and we don't have to get on the video chat, we can, I have a phone. We can talk on the phone. We can chat, whatever you want to do, whatever you prefer. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on from that to looking at our annotated bibliography assignment. So if you will head to Moodle, and the annotated bibliography section is open. Okay, we're going to look at the assignment and then we're going to do a activity, in-class activity. Okay. All right, so everybody head that way. Head to Moodle. All right, I'm going to go get some coffee. What I want you to do is review this. I want you to read the annotated bibliography assignment. Okay, I'll give you about a minute to do that. And then I'll go over specifics. Okay, so I'll be right back. All right, guys, take about 20 seconds or so. Wrap up your survey of the assignment. I don't know why that says 619 to 622, guys. That's crazy. All right, I'm just going to put the chapter here. All right, guys. We are going to be writing an annotated bibliography for a natural science topic. And so we're going to talk briefly about what natural sciences are. It is chapter 9 in your book. So there's a really great introduction there to kind of help you wrap your head around that. But we're going to talk more about that. Okay. And really the goal of this assignment is to talk about ethos, pathos, and logos and how those are used differently in the two different ways that we get natural science information. So the first thing is you are going to find 3 scholarly sources. Scholarly sources are by researchers, developers, research consortiums, professors, those sorts of individuals. So we're going to find 3 scholarly sources on a specific topic. So today we're just going to explore what's out there. And then we're going to kind of start narrowing next week. So really, we're just going to find something that interests you this week and just explore some interests. Okay. And you're just really going to turn on your spidey senses and take a look at what's going on in the news other than COVID-19. Right? Okay. And then we're going to look at and find 3 non-scholarly sources. These are news sources. So the goal of a non-scholarly source is to convey complex scientific information to a general audience. So here, scholarly sources, as you remember from, English 111, these are written by scholars, for scholars, by researchers, for experts. Okay. This is written by journalists, and the journalists, a journalist, their expertise is to be able to synthesize information for a general audience. That's what a journalism degree helps you do. Okay. So we're going to look at 3 non-scholarly sources, 3 news articles written by journalists for a general audience that synthesizes research that is done by the scholars. Okay. We're still going to continue our APA format, and we're going to do around 160 words for each annotation. And we're going to continue to review annotated bibliographies, but you did one in English 111 and you probably have done one before. Okay, so you need a topic related to natural sciences. Okay, natural science is not social science, right? Okay, natural science would be ecology, biology, chemistry, physics. Those are the natural sciences. And, things in between, zoology, okay, herpetology. I have a friend that studied birds. He got his PhD in birds. I don't know what that field is called. So AVL, I'm not even going to try. I don't know what the field is, but he went to, where did he go? Not Australia, New Zealand. He got his doctorate in New Zealand. All he did was study birds, take pictures of birds, and study the habits of birds. So anyway, so that would be a natural science. Anything environmental science, anything related to the environment's good. What you want to stay away from is health. Okay. Now there is a way to study health in a natural science lens. So for instance, you could study cancer, okay? But what you would study is the biological processes, okay, of cancer cells, or you would study the immune function of the body, okay? So the goal is the biology and the chemistry behind health treatments or immunology, but you will not study the actual treatment or the actual prevention. You are studying the process that happens during the illness or lack of health. Okay. Now, if you think that you would get confused, I would just stay away from health. Or I would stay away from a natural science that's informed by health. Okay. But we'll have time to talk through those. Okay. So you're going to choose a research topic and create research questions, and we're going to do that next week. So again, this week's just focused on see what's going on in the news that interests you. Okay. Make sure your topic is narrowed and focused. Okay. So avoid global warming. I'm going to write about global warming. That's a huge topic. If you type in global warming into NC Live, you're going to find like 20,000 articles. Okay. So we're going to, next week especially, going to narrow that down. Okay. Investigate a specific phenomenon. So we are going to find a phenomenon. So for instance, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but there have been like 8 earthquakes this week. Yeah, they've been kind of smallish. Okay. But all over the world, there have been like 8 earthquakes, which is interesting, right? Considering everything else that's been going on. So it makes you wonder what's going on underneath the Earth's crust, right? Okay. So you would pick a big field. So we could start with environmental science, and then we could come down to global warming. And then we're going to go find, because we're going to start with the news articles, and then you're going to go find a news article about global warming and then see what specific phenomenon that is, like Greenland's glaciers melting, sea level rising in the United States, shifting weather patterns in Southeast Asia. Okay. So those are some things. All right. Once you have a topic, you'll start researching. Okay. So 3 sources from non-academic, magazines, newspapers, whatever. We want to be careful about things that are not academic. And we will talk about things that are not preferably academic. So for instance, NPR is a good non-academic, non-scholarly magazine. National Geographic's another one. HuffPost is focused on clicks. The Drudge Report focused on clicks. Slate sometimes focused on clicks. Okay, so we're going to talk about next week specifically which magazines and newspapers are reputable and can be used in an academic setting. Okay, I will tell you rule number 1 is you don't want a magazine that uses cuss words. And I can tell you the Atlantic and Slate, they like to use cuss words. Inflammatory language. Okay, cuss words is like underneath inflammatory language. So any news media that calls people idiots, morons, right? That's not scholarly. Okay, so that's not academic rather. Scholarly has to do with audience. Academic has to do with use. So something scholarly if the audience is scholars and experts. Okay, something is academic if you can use it and it's written by professionals in a professional tone. Okay, so it can be scholarly articles are always academic, but academic articles are not always scholarly. Okay, all right. You cannot use blogs, social media, or personal websites. Okay, one of your 6 must be from an author who is a leader in the field. Okay, all right. So they're doing like groundbreaking work. This will be an older research study. Okay, most of what we want to focus on is recent stuff, but we want to find one older study because we want to see how far that field has come. Okay, so for instance, I had a student do CRISPR. I don't know if you guys are familiar with CRISPR, the gene editing mechanism that was developed, I think, at Harvard. And so they discovered it wasn't as new as they thought it was, that there has been doing, and they ended up doing gene editing. But, they went back to like the late 80s, early 90s and found one of the first articles that was published. So you also must have research from all over the world. We're not just focusing on the United States. Okay, so you want information from researchers from all over the world. Okay, and then each annotation will include the reference page entry, APA format, paragraphs that summarize, analyze, and compare sources. So those are sort of, and we'll continue to talk about that. So you're going to give an overview of the piece, analyze the use of logos, pathos, ethos, okay, and then compare that source to other sources. So the whole purpose of our anti-bibliography is to really look at how the field, right, has how that topic has developed, and really looking at the information that we get. So audience, right, audience and purpose from scholarly versus popular sources. Okay, and that's the goal of that. Okay, any general questions before we get started exploring? Okay. All right. Well, if you will head to Moodle, and we are going to work on kind of just exploring the news for the last few minutes of class. So if you will go to the item labeled activity for 331 class. All right. And please make sure that you attach your name to your post so that I can give you participation credit. Okay. Everybody click on activity for 331 class. Okay. All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to go to a news website, and I encourage you to go to a news website that is not a US website. So you could go to BBC, go to a Canadian website, go to an Australian website. Find something that's interesting under science. Okay. All right. What's going on in science in another country? And then you're going to post your URL here and write a 3-sentence summary. So this is just to get you warmed up, get you thinking about science topics. Okay. So you're going to write 1 sentence about the purpose and audience of the text. And you're just going to remember you're scanning it. Okay. Preview types of evidence and sources. So who do they interview? What kind of evidence do they give? They give statistics and interviews with government officials, right? And then predict how as the average American might react. And you can react as an American. Are you confused because the phenomenon they're studying is unique to their country? Are things missing? Do you have questions? Think about perspective. So 3 sentences. So just pick a country you're interested in. I'm going to do Japan, news, science, and Google. Okay. Notice the Japan Times. Here we go. Right? There's one called Science and Technology. Stay away from technology. Okay. All right. I'm going to go here. All right. A lot of it is coronavirus, you know. So you're going to be sick of that. So you're probably going to want to go to older articles, or you could even type in a specific phenomenon. Let's go here. I hate that they lump science and health together. So let's just go to, and we can type in, you know, science here in the search bar. All right, in science term, Japan has no need to kill at all to kill whales. This is from 2013. But here's one about the Nobel Peace Prize. There's one about space exploration. Okay, just kind of pick a random one. Stem cell science. Okay, if you have a specific topic that you're interested in, like bees, put it in the search bar. Okay, all right, don't do coronavirus. We're sick of that, right? All right, so take about 3 or 4 minutes and then just kind of look around and see what's there. Ooh, Japan approves research program to grow human organs in pigs. All right. Everybody work on that. I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on that. And this should just get your brain going. All right, guys, just pick a science topic. Okay, I know you're kind of scanning. All right, and head to that Padlet and put the plus button up there and just put a little bit about that.
Hey, quick question. I'm not seeing the plus button here on my screen.
Okay, you might have to try to zoom out.
Yeah, because I opened and then closed the
Okay.
kind of like minimize the window.
Uh-huh.
And that still didn't bring it up, and I tried to zoom out, but that didn't work. I
That's
don't know if
weird.
anybody else was not having that issue. I don't know.
Anybody else having that issue? I don't see anything in my settings that would prevent you. Okay, let me try one more place.
I see a spot where it says add comment now
Okay,
that I've like
hold on.
refreshed, but
Okay. It says secret. I don't know what that means. But if you have the link, you should be able to access it. But let me hit public and then see if that helps, because they might have just changed a setting. Okay.
yeah, okay, so yeah, now it worked. Now I have a plus button.
Okay. Maybe
Okay,
they
great.
changed what secret does, because usually anyway. Okay, so everybody should be able to post. We've only got about a minute, so if you guys would just work on this. But I know we've only got a minute. Does anybody have any general questions before we wrap up? Just get this uploaded sometime this week, just so I can make sure that you understand the sciences, and then make sure to do the annotated bibliography quiz and just review the stuff on Moodle. Does anybody have any general questions? Anybody? Okay, I'm going to stop recording so that you can ask any questions you have.